Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm carrying on with covering the various action figures that I have of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And in the last video I talked about all the ones I had from the episode 1 time period. And in this video I'm going to cover the action figures I have from the episodes 2 and 3 time period, including the Clone Wars. So, what you'll notice right away is I have a lot fewer of them than I had of the episode 1 figures. And I'll explain as I go along through this video why there are fewer of them, why I didn't collect as many of them. There are several reasons, and I'll go into that. And some of you may be asking, oh, well, why is there a Yoda action figure here? Well, the reason for that is I don't really have any of the Obi-Wan Kenobi figures still in the package from the episode 2 time period, and I wanted to make sure to show you what the packaging style looks like. So this is Yoda, and essentially the Obi-Wan Kenobi figures that you see here were packaged in the same style of packaging. So what you'll notice right away is the card size is roughly the same size as the Power of the Force action figures and the episode 1 action figures. However, the size of the bubble is much larger, and that made it sort of inconvenient to have so many of them in the package, and also made it more difficult to actually stack them together. They took up a lot of room, and they also included a lot of extra sort of accessories that at least from my perspective, I didn't really want. So although I really like this version of Yoda, all this extra stuff that came with it, other than his lightsaber and maybe his cane, I didn't really want any of it. So they were packing in a lot of extra stuff into the packaging that was sort of unnecessary, and that made for these gigantic bubbles. And you can see on the back of this Yoda package, they describe some of the gimmickry involved with these particular figures. And that was true across the line for the most part. So many of these figures had this sort of gimmickry going on. I understand why they did it, because they were trying to appeal to kids. But for me, as a collector, none of that really mattered. And so here we're looking at the first Obi-Wan Kenobi episode 2 action figure that I actually bought. This is the one from the Accolade battle in the Geonosian arena, where Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't have a lightsaber, but he has this spear. And so he takes on this sort of gigantic green, almost like a crab-like creature. And he's just battling it with a spear. And this is one of the figures, obviously, that has the gimmickry in it. And so there's a button on the side of it that is supposed to activate this sort of stabbing action, but it's pretty underwhelming. So when you push it, you see, like, a lot of times nothing happens. And then if you adjust it a little bit, sometimes you can get it to kind of move. So if you fiddle with this enough, you can kind of get it to do the stabbing action like this. But again, it's very underwhelming, and I don't really think this was necessary to do in order to make for a decent action figure. I do like all the sculpting on this figure. I think they did a really good job, particularly the head sculpt does very much look like the way Ewan McGregor looks in that movie, in terms of the beard, hairstyle, and even the face sculpt does look very much like Obi-Wan Kenobi from episode 2. But, in terms of the features of this, that gimmick actually means that the articulation is somewhat limited. So if you take the spear out, you'll notice there's a pivot point right here where you can kind of change the position of this arm. And there's also a pivot point here. There's no rotation at the waist and just a single pivot point at the head. And you do get some articulation at the hips, but it's limited just because of his outfit. So in terms of being an interesting action figure, in terms of articulation and posing, there's not much to it. So it's a little frustrating because, again, the sculpting and everything on this is fantastic. And one other gimmick that they often included with these Jedi figures was they would have a magnet in the hand too, because they were making the lightsaber handles out of metal with a plastic blade inserted into it. So you could actually have the lightsaber adhere to the hand like that. So kind of a cool idea in theory. However, like, this hand doesn't really look like it's holding on to the lightsaber at all. So in order to have a more believable version of Obi-Wan Kenobi wielding a lightsaber, you really need to put it into the gripping hand So it kind of defeats the purpose of having that magnet altogether. So, and he only kind of slightly grips it too, so it's not very tight grip on the handle. So again, a lot of flaws with these figures, and part of my reason for not buying very many of them is because of the gimmickry and the various flaws with these things. So in terms of that figure, I do like it, but again, it's not perfect by any means. So the second figure that I bought from episode 2 was the pilot version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And my main reason for getting this one was because I actually had the Jedi Starfighter that was associated with Obi-Wan Kenobi, the one that he flies to Kamino and Geonosis as he's tracking the bounty hunter Jango Fett. And for those of you who've been watching my channel, you've already seen that I've reviewed that vehicle here on the channel in a separate video. So I'll put a link in the description to that video in case you want to watch it. And so I did show this figure previously, and he also has the magnet in the hand, which adheres to the metal lightsaber handle. And he also came with these little binoculars as well. Again, he does have articulation at the wrists and also at the elbow. There's a pivot point there. But again, this one also has like a gimmick too. There's a button here that's supposed to activate like a lightsaber slashing action. But again, it doesn't really work very well. You have to sort of like push the arms up, and I guess they kind of move down a little bit, but they kind of stick once they move downward. It's really kind of underwhelming, and so yeah, again, the gimmickry and stuff, I don't really care for it. Again, great job on the head sculpt. I think they did a really good job in terms of capturing the way Obi-Wan Kenobi looks as he's piloting his Jedi Starfighter. So again, I like this figure a lot, but it has its limitations in terms of what you can actually do with it. So the next figure I want to talk about is this one from the Clone Wars time period. And so this one was released, I believe, during the time period of episode 3. And it actually depicts sort of like a scene as Obi-Wan Kenobi appears in the original Clone Wars cartoon. I'm talking about the Genndy Tartakovsky version, where Obi-Wan Kenobi is actually riding on a speeder bike and doing like a kind of like jousting maneuver versus Dirge, the bounty hunter, who's also on a speeder bike. So he has this kind of large kind of lance that he uses for this jousting maneuver. And he comes with the Clone Wars armor too, which is pretty cool. I like this a lot. And all of this armor is actually removable too. So that's kind of a cool feature. So you can actually take all the armor pieces off of him. So, which is pretty interesting, including, he came with a helmet that I obviously showed you. And each of these little armor pieces just sort of clicks into the various holes on his body. And then you can actually remove his cloak and the front of the armor from the figure as well. So all of this comes off, and then you have just the standard Obi-Wan Kenobi underneath that in his regular Jedi outfit. So it's kind of a cool feature that actually you can completely transform the look of this figure. And his head is on a ball joint, so he gets some decent articulation as well. So I actually kind of like this. And this one, again, has some gimmickry with it. I think there's supposed to be like a action where you push together the legs of this, and he kind of does like a slashing action. So again, kind of silly. I don't really care for this gimmick, but at least in this case, it didn't really limit as much of the articulation. There is still articulation at the waist, although because it is linked to the arm movement, it kind of limits what you can actually do with it. But he does get articulation at the elbows and also at the wrists. So that's quite nice. So a little less of, restricted movement because of the gimmickry. But again, I don't care for these gimmicks. And I'm very happy that, in terms of the way Star Wars toys are being done now, they don't rely so much on the gimmickry. They're more inclined to do a straight up, depiction of the character, and, the vintage collection in particular, has a lot of articulation and not so many of the gimmicks. So that's quite nice. But I do like this figure. Again, the likeness isn't quite as good on this one as some of the other episode 2 figures, but it's decent enough. And again, another cool addition to my overall collection of Obi-Wan Kenobi figures. And the last figure I want to talk about is this one, and this is the only one that I have from the third movie, Revenge of the Sith. And again, part of the reason why I didn't buy too many figures from this movie is they had this weird style of packaging. Again, this bubble is way larger than it needs to be, and it means when you're trying to stack these together, that curving thing really doesn't allow them to stack together very easily. So that's frustrating. So building a collection of these is kind of counterintuitive unless you're going to take a lot of them out of the package, which is essentially what I did. This is one of the few that I actually left in the package because, again, the gimmickry on this, this Jedi kick action, my guess is that it limits the articulation on this figure. I mean, you can see the points of articulation at the elbow, at the wrist, and you can see this knee kicking thing. But from what I've seen of versions of this out of the package, the way the articulation happens on this leg is some kind of strange pivoting thing because it has to, do the gimmick, which you see here. So, but again, this line of figures was pretty extensive. There were a lot of different figures released, and I did buy quite a few of them, and a lot of them I just took out of the package because I just didn't really care for this packaging style. Most of the ones that I bought from Revenge of the Sith were the various Jedi characters, any of the ones that hadn't been done for Episode 2, and also a lot of clones. They released a lot of different variations of the clone figures from the third movie, and I really do like the look of the way the clone armor was done for that third movie. So yeah, I ended up buying quite a few of those. None of them are pictured here on the back, but at some point in the future, I will make sure to show you all the various clone figures that I have in my collection, because I have quite a few. I was actually trying to sort of fill out a display, which I have, because I have the Republic gunship, which is a very large vehicle. So, I have a display that has a whole bunch of clones, not only from episodes 2, but also episodes 3. And it was sort of my army building kind of mentality kicked in when these figures were released during this time period, because there were so many different variations. I just wanted to fill out a fully realized army of clones that would make sense and look appropriate for the time period. So that's it for this video, but stay tuned to my channel for more Obi-Wan Kenobi coverage coming soon. I have a review coming up of Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter, the blue version from Episode 3. This is the one that he flies to Utapau when he's searching for General Grievous. So that's a very cool action figure vehicle, and I will be reviewing that coming up on my channel very soon. I also have some 12-inch scale versions of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I will be reviewing on the channel eventually as well. Also, when the Obi-Wan Kenobi series concludes on Disney+, I will be making a video where I give you my thoughts on that particular series and just sort of cover that as a series and give you my opinions on it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And until next time, I hope you're having a great day, and may the Force be with you. Thanks for watching.